good garbage, because garbage can be super good if it's used for regenerative purposes. It's something that the nature can take care of itself.
Hello. Welcome to the Good Garbage Podcast. My name is Ved Krishna. My primary reason for existence has been to find ways to leave our wonderful planet cleaner. We will be speaking with material innovators, creators, and propagators to learn from them how we can build for scale and towards a regenerative future. Their stories will help us answer the big question: what is good garbage? There is a common thread that I've noticed amongst the Swedes. They focus really hard on particular niches. Our guest today, Sigrid Svedberg, the co-founder of EVLR, takes that quality to the next level, where they have focused upon making the simple plastic cable tie used by airlines for luggage, locks, or in the events or game parks for identification, and they've made it compostable as well as more effective. I learned during the conversation how billions of these straps are used and thrown every year. Sigrid got exposed to a deep connection with nature, living in the Nordics and through her parents adopting biodynamic farming methods early on. She spent years working in product development with large paper and forestry companies before venturing out on her own. We learned so much through this conversation about products, design, and innovation. Enjoy. Hello. We have Sigrid Svedberg, the co-founder of EVLR International, today with us. And I'm very excited, Sigrid, because not many people in this world are focusing on something called FiberStrap. So that'll be very interesting to talk about what it is, etc. But before getting into that, let's talk about Sigrid the person. And of course, before we started recording, you mentioned you have a Viking name. So maybe let's start there. Your growing up years, your influences. What makes you the person you are today?
Oh, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me, Ved. It's super nice to be here and talk with you. And short about my background, you mentioned a Viking name, and I think that we have to blame my parents. We are 4 siblings, and all of us has gotten the Viking names. It is not maybe so common in Sweden today. So a little bit difficult to pronounce, but that's how it is. And my background, I grew up in the north of Sweden. My parents, they were quite early with ecological farming, biodynamic farming, that was what it was called back then in the 1970s. So they moved out to the countryside, and in the north of Sweden, it's a very, very short season for growing vegetables and things that you can actually eat. So it was quite tough climate to do something like that, and especially without what other farmers used at the time, pesticides and these things, but just naturally organic farming. So this is my background. I also have a background in engineering, but I just happened to get into the packaging industry. That was not up by plan, but as most of the people that starts with the packaging industry, they also continue in that industry. So I have been working with packaging design, sustainable packaging, I think all aspects of packaging for over 20 years.
And we'll get into a lot of that as we go along. But I'm fascinated with when you said biodynamic, because I would not have expected people so far back in Sweden to be doing biodynamic farming. Of course, I come from India, so I know the subject relatively well. And I've also got a permaculture design background. So again, understand that. But it's fascinating because the modern biodynamic farming was this New Zealand guy who kind of reactivated it. But, it's a lot to do with, and why I'm bringing this up, because it connects really well with overall with ecology, because it's so much to do with the Earth's movement, the gravitational pull. So did those ideas from your parents influence your affinity to the planet? And if it did, then how? Could you elaborate on that?
I think I was very aware of the sustainability aspects growing up on this farm, and also the mindset of growing also vegetables and growing it could also be grass for the cows without any substances that was not from the nature itself, so to say. So of course I have grown up in this environment also, and of course it has influenced me, I think, to constantly think about the planet, people, and trying to take care of it as much as
Yeah, and I
possible.
also think that, I have, again, like I was telling you before we hit record, I have so many wonderful Swedish friends. And I think it's something about Scandinavia overall that I think the awareness
Mm.
towards ecology, sustainability is relatively high. And it has always been that case, maybe connection with nature or something like that. But of course, I know little about the north of Sweden. But that said, it must have been an interesting journey for you to kind of choose innovation, design as your background. So, how did that happen? How did a farm girl from the north of Sweden decide that she wants to learn innovation and design? How did that transpire?
Oh, good question. But I have always been interested in science also. I think that has been very close to my heart, both science and mathematics. And I actually studied 1 year mathematics at university when I didn't really know what to become. But then I finally found a combination. I studied design engineering, and the combination of creating something, innovating something in combination with the technical aspect was something that I found very interesting. And I think it has been super useful also working with the um, packaging industry, also trying to find new solutions. And further on, I have also been more and more interested in new materials. How can they be combined? Because a packaging solution is not only what some packaging companies provide. The solution, it's much more than just a box. It's and in my case right now, we're working with FiberStrap. That is one part of the packaging solution, but it can be so much more. Inserts and everything that you combine to support a product on its journey and shipment in the supply chain. So I think this is the mindset, to broaden it from a box to something
And
more.
I work with so many wonderful designers, and it is complex because it is such a play
Yeah.
of not just pure design. If you were just coming from a form stand of view, then it was one thing, right? But you have to look at functionality, chemistry, materials. It's a variety of things. So of course,
Yes.
like you said right in the beginning, once you get sucked into packaging, you get sucked in, and that becomes your
Yeah.
whole kind of universe in a way. And I can understand that, but I'd love to learn from you on how that happened. The way I see in your background is that you ended up with an internship with Stora, but then right after you kind of graduate, you get into SCA, which is again another wonderful Swedish company. So tell us about this journey on how packaging found you rather than you finding packaging, and then how did that become such an important part of your life?
I think it actually started with what you mentioned, the internship at Stora Enso way back. It was just during a summer, I think, but it was a wonderful experience because it was a combination from a design studio that combined um, design students from different parts in Europe to work together in this environment, working with packaging, trying to find new solutions and just think new. And I think that was super exciting to be a part of. And I think this combination was really, really interesting. So when I finally got a chance to apply for a job at a packaging company as a packaging designer, I took it. I thought it was fantastic. I think it was one of the more difficult areas of packaging you can work with. It was display packaging and point on sales, and it's a lot of calculating, working with this type of constructions and designs, and but it is also very creative and you have to think new every time. It's not a standard box when you work with that type of paper-based material displays. They're made from corrugated, and they can be made from thick board materials, and it's very challenging and also very rewarding to find solutions in this
I want to
segment.
actually double click on that. You mentioned a term in between. It's a lot of calculation. So talk to
Yeah.
us more about that, because when I look at the companies you've worked for, they're huge, like Stora Enso, SCA, Billerud Korsnäs. They're huge companies, and fundamentally, the way I see them is that they are pulp, paper, board manufacturers. But you, of course, are doing packaging, which is further downstream. So talk to us more about that aspect of why so much calculation, and then how do these companies, as such large conglomerates, focus on packaging design? Because they may not, right? You can create a roll of paper and say, okay, the converter, the company can do what they want. And why is it that they do that? Educate me on that.
Absolutely. And of course, that is the most easy thing you can do, to just produce a reel and then sell it. But if you really want to understand also the end users, the value for the actually the people that will use it in the end, it's consumers, then you have to do something else to get also closer to the end users, also to understand the trends, the end users' thoughts, how they will use it, because otherwise you will never know if you're producing the right material to meet their needs. It's as you say, it's a quite long stream until from the forest, because some of the companies I've been working for, they also have forests, and the whole way down to packaging. But I think it's very, very interesting to see, because it's the customer that's also, they are also putting in their demands and their needs, and the pull force to what they want to use. Like it can be sustainability wise, but it can also be print wise, for example, and many other aspects. But I think it's extremely valuable to know these factors, because otherwise you don't know really what why are you producing what you're producing. Of course you can get it from the customer as well, but the first customer in the chain. But I think it's more valuable to know the end of the
So I want
product.
to ask a follow-up question, but I want to make sure that we understand the first bit when you said calculation. So talk to us about that, and then I'm going to ask a follow-up question on this, because I'm very intrigued with what you're talking about.
Sure. So if I talk about the calculation, so just to create, what I was working with was displays, and displays is not something that you just use a design and then you copy it and then you produce it several times. It is very unique for each customer what they want to have on what type of display. And if it's something that it can be 2 meters large, it needs to be able to stand in retail, for example. It can't fall down. Sometimes it needs to contain a lot of heavy weight, and it needs to stand there for some time until it is taken down. So to calculate this, you have to do it every single time on the load, on the performance of the board. It's and also the blank size of the sheet you're going to use to create these displays. It's a lot of calculations just creating a display with products in it that has a certain amount of weight, and you have to do it every time because it's new products, it's new type of displays, it's different sizes, everything is new every time.
Yeah, but just
So
just for my clarity, typically a large
mm,
pulp and paper organization is fundamentally trying to create a lot of material, right? So do they get into this
yeah.
kind of intricacy of the final usage? And of course, is that a separate part of the company then, where they are printing and creating the product, or it is basically for the
Yes.
converter that they are doing this kind of effort?
For the companies, the big packaging companies I have worked for, they have had both. Some of them have had both forest and producing reels, and it has been different divisions. So one division is the forest division, if I simplify it. One division is you can say the yeah material division, that it is producing the material. One division can be the packaging solution division, and that is the converter, maybe. Sometimes it is. So it can be different divisions in one company, but they are working on separate areas, but they are also connected. And maybe one division can be working with other new biomaterials and innovations. So this is how it can
So
be
there's a lot of
structured.
vertical integration that is happening. So I'm going to now, like what I said about following up on your earlier statement. Uh, what I find there is kind of there's a conflict that happens, especially when there's an external converter, where what happens is that the paper company provides a material to the converter, but the converter always wants it to be very generic because they want that today they are buying from Stora, tomorrow they might buy from UPM, day after they might buy from SCA, and they want the paper companies to compete, right? That's how they will, because their business is based on the margin they'll create by lowering the cost of material and increasing the price of sale. And typically, their buyers pretty much track their expense or cost. So, how do you differentiate? Like, you've worked for wonderful companies. How do you differentiate? Because you don't want the converter to be unhappy with you, but you also want to
Mm,
understand the final usage. What I run
mm,
against many times with our company is that the sales guys don't want to upset the converter because ultimately you will be replaced, and if you want to go directly to the brand, then the converter may say that, oh, this is not a good quality product, I'm not going to work with it. So then you've upset the converter. So how does one balance this idea of creative dissonance between the converter, your interest, and the brand's interest? How do you bridge that gap?
yeah, this is a really good question. And I mean, these situations is something that I feel quite familiar with. And of course, I think the best setup for this is to maybe try to work with 20-80 rule on this. So maybe 80% is the volume production and volume selling, because a lot of brands also want to buy, just a box, but also to differentiate and to be unique and to be also creating a sustainable relationship with your customers. Then you also need to work with innovation and design and a more end user focus on the packaging. So I think it's a combination that is the best solution in this case.
And 80% is the commodity, or 80%?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
80% you
yeah.
just have to
I
sell the
think
volume. Whoever buys, price,
yeah, yes.
tonnage, and of course,
I
because
think
the
it's
only calculation we tend to do is the decal width, right? What is the cut? The
yeah,
other calculation the
yeah.
converter can go and do. But a paper
Mm,
company would definitely want to optimize their width. Is this much cut going,
yeah.
and we are not wasting that. But apart from that, the
Mm,
other calculations that you were talking about in terms of the weight, the type of product, etc., are done on the converter
mm,
side. But what you're saying is that at least 20% of our focus must go into the final customer and their interest, and then
yes,
working back
mm,
from it so that we are constantly
exactly.
improving. Because many times you will not improve because
Yes,
the converter many times doesn't want you to improve, right? The only thing they want is the
yes,
best product at the lowest price. So there is a
exactly.
there's a
And this
thin
is not what
balance
the
there,
consumers
right?
want. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes this is not what the consumers want. Sometimes the consumers, they don't want this type of packaging. They want the packaging that is easy to recycle. They want it to be fully recyclable, the whole solution, and not being sorting things in different bins when they're recycling, or unnecessary plastic. Maybe they don't want this. They want a more optimized solution also, that is more fit for the needs of the end users. So this is also, maybe the quality can be changed, or maybe you can work with the design to get a stronger box, but you don't have to need that over specified material. So it can be a lot of aspects that are super important to know. And I think also, when the consumers love the packaging, also the customers, the brands or the companies, they will gain from this because they will give benefits to the customers, and also the packaging companies, because this is value. It's a value in the packaging, so it's more related to value selling.
So when you say an end user or the consumer, so this is fascinating. So you would even not just study the, say, again, from a chain perspective, say there is and I'm going by my own experience, so you can replace the names, but say there is a converter, which is like an Amcor, which converts, and there is a buyer or a customer, which is McDonald's. And then there is a user like you and me who is actually going and holding that wrapper or that bag. So what you are saying is that companies should be looking at also the end user, because otherwise you
Absolutely.
don't innovate to improve the life of the end user, right? And then you can sell better to the McDonald, and then McDonald will hopefully convince Amcor, or both you and us and McDonald will convince Amcor to use a different product. Is that fundamentally, am I getting it right?
Exactly. Yes, it is. And I think, I mean, this is also what is driving innovation, right? What we need, what products we need on the market, and what the products the consumers want. So this is also a driver for more sales.
Okay, I'm going to continue to learn from you on this because you've worked for some companies that I really look up to. And one of them, of course, is Billerud Korsnäs. Again, a company that has always been on the cutting edge of innovation. And I've seen their products and, coming out with ideas that are totally different. Two of them, which I've been very fascinated with, is the whole fiber form thing, which they created. Now, whether it
Yeah.
was a huge success or not is secondary. It's just a paper company creating something that will change the world is beautiful for me. And again, like Mondi and Billerud compete a lot, also on a lot of barrier coated kind of grades, again, coming out with very, very interesting packaging products. And again, super strong, durable. Of course, you have the benefit of the wonderful Swedish forests. But that said, talk to us a little more about what you learned in a company like Billerud Korsnäs that you now adopt in your own business and would recommend to the people listening that you must think like this so that we can all improve.
Oh, this is a good question. It's also a quite big companies with many different business areas, you can say. I was mainly working for a business area called managed packaging. That was working with brand owners in Europe and US, and helping them with packaging in Asia. So this was a little bit different part of than formed fiber, but I know, of course, formed fiber quite well, even if I have not been working in exactly that business. But more, what I did in managed packaging was more focusing on optimization and correct quality for shipment overseas, and especially filling the container and not shipping air, pressing out the air from the boxes, having the right sizes for the containers. It's huge savings, both for the environment, but also in money.
So, from this learning, what are your recommendations to people in the packaging business that you must? And I'm kind of integrating it with our conversation that we were having in terms of really understanding the application and then creating something that will create value. Because it's not really about, we think about it in terms of cost and price, but I find that maybe that's not the right parameter. What the customer is looking for is value in the end, and you use that term.
Yes.
So how do you see that, and what is your recommendation to those listening that you must think like this or work like this, obviously from your kind of design lens and customer.
So I would say this is a quite complex question, no doubt about it, because you have to look at, I mean, to create value, you have to, in complex business setups with shipments overseas and so on, You have to look at every step at the supply chain. You also need to know the material quite well, what type of materials you use, not over specifying. You need to use labs and testing to make sure that you are on the right level on quality of the packaging. So I think it's a lot of aspects, and you need also to know, for example, in this case, when working with shipments, also how do they work with the packaging in the warehouse? Is it easy for the people to unload the trailer or the container? How can they work with automated systems in the warehouses? How can they easily identify the packaging and know exactly what it contains? And it's a lot of aspects you have to think about. But when you do that, then you finally get such a nice solution that it makes everyone happy. It's a nice advantage of digging into these details. It's nitty gritty, and it usually takes some time also to gather this full picture that you need to
So
work
what
with.
you're saying is that it's not just about the product design alone. It is the whole thing. You have to look at the
No.
supply chain, how it fits into the warehouse. It's like and that's how you create value, because then you can explain to the,
Yes.
so taking a little advancement on that. So you can create a product which you've seen all this and you have some value. But what I find also is that if you don't communicate it well, that becomes a challenge, right? So talk to us and teach us
Yes.
about that.
Yes.
You also have a background in communications as well. So how does one communicate so that the customer is able to see that, yes, I want to talk to this company? How do you create a pull that I have a better design that will create better business for you? So how does that work, and how do you ensure that you do that? And you've also worked with companies like IKEA, which again have amazing communication ability as well. So yeah, teach us again about not just the value creation but value communication. How does one do that?
I think first and foremost is to find the right stakeholder or stakeholders. And I think usually, the best situation, then it's stakeholders, because in a company to make decisions, you need a few people it can be from maybe 3 different departments. It can be from sustainability, it can be from marketing, it can be from their innovation department, it can be some different functions that are really interesting to get in touch with, because they have all their own side of how they think of what is interesting for them. So the communication needs to focus on these individuals, on what they are interested in. So it's not only one person and one message. You need to have several messages packed in the same box to communicate this. And I think also you need to find, if you're talking with a new customer, for example, you have to do your research. You have to understand the company's sustainability goals. You have to understand where they come from, and you have to understand where you want to be in the future also as well. And when you find these things, and you can also, of course, have a look at very basically how does the packaging solution look like today? What do you directly see that you could improve, for example? Small things that they could understand, yes, this person really wants to help us. So I think that is the key, if I would summarize it.
And has digital media made it easier to get to the right people? And but again, they will also have so many things that they're doing. So in order to take their interest, you have to communicate in a certain way so that they talk to you, right? Of course, if you're Billerud or
Absolutely.
Stora, they may talk to you. But if you're a smaller company, they may
Mm.
say, like I don't have time. So how do you message better?
Yeah. The best is to keep it short, your message, but still you need also to have your key points very clear. And I think also to get the people's attention, it's really, really nice also to show some pictures, maybe of their packaging and maybe how a solution could look like, because you don't have to read so much. Then you can actually look at the pictures, and it's very intuitive. So you can understand directly, okay, this person or this company wants to help me with this. This can be interesting. Maybe, and sometimes it's maybe not for this person, but it's easy to forward to the person that could be the right person for this conversation. So I think this is how the best way of working
I
with
think
it.
that's a great practical suggestion that, enclose pictures ideally of their product. So then it becomes more
Yeah,
enticing for them,
yeah.
because otherwise, there is only that much time in the day. Okay, I'm going to take a pivot. And of course, you've worked in these wonderful companies, but then how did the entrepreneurship bug bite you that, okay, now I want to do something on my own? How did that happen? And of course, in conjunction with that, why did you choose this whole domain of FiberStrap? This is a very focused area. So both those things. Why entrepreneurship and why FiberStrap?
I have always been interested in entrepreneurship, and I have always worked with development of new products. So that is very close to my heart, to how to do it, and how to find how to say how to get ideas to become something real. I think this is also a very interesting topic because it's difficult, and it's always very interesting with difficult topics. It's very challenging, and this is also something that I can't resist. When someone says that something is impossible or it cannot be done, then I turned directly into it, and
That's
I
why
want
they
to
gave
solve
you a
that
Viking
problem.
name, Sigrid.
Yeah, probably. So FiberStrap, we are three co-founders. We all have a background in the packaging industry, over 20 years each. So we have seen a lot of plastic in the packaging. And all of us have an entrepreneurial mind, if you could say. So I think it was a really good fit when we talked about this. And we said, why when we talked about the plastic cable tie, for example, so why produce something in a material that lasts for hundreds of years and you use it only once? It's so unnecessary. We can do something here. So this is how it started, actually. And I was super happy with my previous job, my previous position. I was leading an organization of 110 designers in this company, and I had a fantastic team that we were creating new solutions in new materials and try to include a lot of new innovative materials in the packaging solutions. So it was not that I left my job because I didn't like it. I loved it. But I also love this opportunity to do something on my own and with my co-founders to create something from scratch.
You could have done numerous things, right? You're all packaging designers, but you choose a very, very focused area. Is that a Swedish thing to do? Because I've interviewed others as well, like Lars, who like focus on one thing, that closure. And similarly, I see in your case that it's a very focused idea that, we will focus on a certain different
Yeah.
kind of closure, which is the fiber strap, or create a fiber strap. So why and how did that idea transpire amongst the three of you? And maybe you can club it a little more on how did the three of you come together. Of course, you're from the packaging background, but you have to meet and you have to trust each other enough that you're going to do this together. So how did you come together, and how did that
Exactly.
one idea emerge that this is what we are going to work on?
I have to think about how many years back this is, but it is way back at the SCA time. Then I started to work with one of the co-founders, Folke, at SCA. So we have been working together very closely with the developing packaging for SCA. And then our roads separated for a while. I was working for IKEA, helping them with packaging solutions. And after a while, I was traveling to their head office in Älmhult. It's in the middle of the forest, so it was quite challenging to travel because I was living in Stockholm by that time. And after some years, I wanted to get back to Stockholm, and I got an opportunity at Billerud Korsnäs. And the person who hired me was Tobias, who is the third co-founder. So this is how I and Tobias met. We worked together. Tobias asked me if I could recommend some really good person for a new position, and then I recommended Folke. So this is how we three ended up working in the same place. Shortly after, I think Tobias and Folke, they worked in the Stockholm office for 2 weeks, and then Tobias left for a position in the US in Portland. So our roads have been like meeting many times. But we said also when I started at another company after Billerud Korsnäs, Stora Enso, then I and Folke said, we are working so well together. We need to find something that we can do in the future. And with Tobias, of course, also a fantastic person. So this is how we said we will do this on our spare time. So we founded actually FiberStrap, we worked on evenings, we worked on weekends. So every Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, we met, had a meeting for, I think it was 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
So this is how it, like, just to have something, we said we need to think about it, because this is a quite good idea to develop this product.
Okay. Talk
So
to
this
us
is
a
how
little
it
more
started.
about the product.
Sure. So yeah, you can see it there. This is the short version. We have much longer versions as well. So this is the fiber strap, and this is the cord. It is paper. So this is pure paper. But as you also mentioned, the forests in the Nordics. The forests in Sweden and Finland, for example, they have really, really long fibers. And that means that they are very strong. And this is what we use in FiberStrap. We have a locking head. It is a PLA. It's made from sugarcane. It's no food conflict. And it's reinforced with hemp fibers. The hemp fibers comes from Germany. And then in the middle, we have a very, very small metal piece. And this is needed to secure the locking. Of course, in the future, we would love to use something that can biodegrade as easy as the cord. But right now, this is the first product, so this is what we have. But it's needed. It needs to secure locking. So this is how it looks like, and you can attach it like this. It's just like a cable tie, and it is strong. So the tensile strength is 110 Newton. That means it's about 11.2 or 11.3 kilos. But before stretch to break, it's about 20 kilos. So it's incredibly strong, actually.
So, for those of you listening and not seeing, Sigrid just did a whole display of how the strap looks like. So, I would recommend that you see the video for this part of the conversation, because it is incredible when Sigrid actually shows it. But Sigrid, if I look at it as a business idea, it's a very narrow product focus. So there must be something that
Yes.
must have incited you guys that, oh, this is what we want to work on and not something else. And then, of course, like, you have to be able to, as business people, you have to be able to think, okay, there is enough of a market in this area. So how did that,
Yes.
that ideation happen, that this is the product and this is going to be enough of a market for us to start a business?
We decided this product because we could see that there were no alternative. It was a problem that needed to be solved. And this is usually, a lot of companies, they see this as it's defined as a consumable. So they don't even measure how much plastic cable ties they use every year. And this is also a problem because a product is so small, it doesn't mean that it have no impact. Because to create one of this length, shortest length, 200 millimeters plastic cable tie, one piece of this consumes almost 15 liters of water to be produced. And that is huge. If you calculate on how many cable ties are produced every year, it ends up with a lot. And also in the CO2 emissions that are created by the fossil plastic cable ties. So, I mean, it makes sense to replace, even if the product is tiny, the impact is huge. And also, how do you recycle polyamide plastic? It's not that easy. It is very very difficult, and especially when in a packaging solution, because if you have something like this in a packaging solution, you can put everything in the paper recycling. But with a polyamide plastic cable tie, it's difficult. So we thought it must be a market for this for this product, and now we are focusing a lot on packaging and such. But if you think about the whole event industry, when music festival and sport events, they use thousands and thousands of plastic zip ties for one event, and when the event is broken down, they're cutting the zip ties. They fall into the grass. Then the cleaning crew come and are supposed to find all these pieces of plastic cable ties, and they will not. This is also has been measured by these festivals, that this is the most common trash actually on a festival site. So what will happen is that a lawn mower will come and eventually chop this polyamide plastic cable ties in even smaller pieces. So a lot of microplastics are created. In some event sites, they have animals that are eating the grass, like cows or sheep, like in Ireland and so on. And if they eat the plastic cable tie, they are super sharp. They get damaged inside their stomachs. And in the same way, what we have seen the pictures from the marine environment and the oceans, when an animal gets trapped into a plastic cable tie. And remember, some of them doesn't biodegrade in hundreds of years. So when the animal grow, and the plastic zip tie, it will stay on the same place where it has been, where the animal has been trapped into it. So if it's around the neck or anywhere else, it will just cut into the animal. So this is also a problem, that they are everywhere. They are not really collected. They are also quite small, so they are ending up in the nature and in the oceans. So then we really think that we have, of course, we want it to be recycled and so on, but if it would end up in water or if it would end up in the nature, the paper would biodegrade. So this is also one aspect of it. So both for packaging solutions and other applications, we think that, yeah, we might have something that we can, I mean, that has really, really good benefits for both people and the planet.
And is there enough of from a business perspective, how did you assess that there is enough of a market to build a company focused on this? And I'm adding on one more question. Is this the only design you do, or are there multiple designs for locking that you've come out with? So let's start with the first one, so that we stick to the flow.
Yes.
So just from a business
This is,
standpoint, how did you assess that? Okay, this is enough to focus on and to get right. I understand from ecological standpoint now, animals, marine life, litter, grass, well taken. But ultimately, you have to sustain yourself. So, how did you decide? Okay, this is the amount of volume that we can generate from this.
we have read several reports on how much cable ties are produced every year, and we think there's a big, dark unknown as well from what we got. But we are estimating that it's produced over 300 billion plastic cable ties every year. And if you think about it, one short cable tie consumes 15 liters of water, then it's, you can add up how much it is in the sustainability aspect as well. But 300 billion cable ties is what we estimate. We think it is probably much more. I mean, it's not sustainable to produce that much of plastic to use only for one time. Sometimes they use it only for a few hours in some attachments. So we think it's something here that we can actually offer for customers and the market. And we have been working with the packaging industry, so we knew quite well the companies in this industry that could be interested. We also think there's a lot of segments for attachment that we have not even touched. We are working a little bit, starting to work with the horticulture industry, like attachment for, it can be tomato plantations, vineyards, apple farms, and so on. But also in the electrical segment and the construction industry, building houses. Just to build a house, a lot of plastic cable ties are used, and usually just to keep something together when you're building it. So there are plenty of segments that we have not even worked with yet.
And the design that you showed us, is that the one kind of design that you do in different sizes? Or is there also
Yes.
other designs? Like, there's, of course, different Ziplocs and things like that. Are they also things that you work on? Or is this one thing to get right now?
Yes, you're correct. So this is the thing we want to get perfect right now. So we are in the phase, we have built our first machine. It took a couple of years to build it. So it has been a very interesting journey. It has recently been moved from its development site to its final production site. So right now we are ramping up production. We want to focus on this product right now, but we have a lot of interesting ideas in our innovation pipeline, of course. So we will take more development steps to broaden our offering also to the consumers and the customers, so we can use it in more applications.
We would like to take a minute to thank our sponsors. Good Garbage is sponsored by Paka, a family of brands that produces compostable packaging and works to implement regenerative solutions. Paka's new project is to bring compostable food serviceware and food carry products to the North American marketplace. Learn more at paka.com. Now back to the conversation. So of course, let's stay with the business side. So of course, there is always that challenge when you create a new product of being able to convince the customer. And at least in our case, we found that only sustainability many times doesn't convince all the customers. Yes, some customers for sure. So there's always that cost angle. So how have you tackled
Yes.
that? Are you able to talk to them? Because looking at the beauty and the sophistication of your product, my assumption is that the simple polyamide may be a different price range. So, how do you convince a customer that this is going to add more value? Like we were talking before, there'll be a higher value created apart from them being sustainable. Is that something you guys have been able to crack?
First of all, if we just talk about plastics, it's one of the most cheapest material you can produce something in. So it is, of course, when you develop a new product with completely sustainable materials, you have all certifications, you are sourcing, sustainable sourcing, and you can track everything on your product to a really ethical and sustainable production. It is something when you're competing with a product when you don't have this much of requirements on the product, but for a sustainable product you have it, and of course you should have it. We should have everything available, and we have the LCA, of course, and so you can really trust us, because I think trust is also a key word here, that we are producing an ethical and sustainable product. And of course, if you compare with the cheapest plastic cable ties that you can buy today, sometimes you can just Google plastic cable ties and you will get a price, and that is usually the most cheap that you can find. They are very often produced in Asia, the cheap ones, and you don't really know the circumstances of the production, the factory, the workers. So this is a little bit hidden. But if you're looking at the most cheap plastic cable ties, we are several times more expensive. If you compare with cable ties that are produced maybe in Europe or in US, we can be on par on the same price or a bit more expensive. So it depends a little bit on what you're buying today.
And are you able to convince the customer beyond sustainability? Are you able to say our product performs better or something like that? Because I'm just
Yes.
thinking from a bulk market standpoint. Yes, you'll always have
Yeah.
customers who want to just do right and they will choose. But
Mm.
then when you're talking to a customer who's buying a big amount, because for them every penny matters, right? Every penny it's
Yes.
in millions of pieces, so so then that becomes a challenge. But then how does one create a narrative that this is better for you in terms of performance,
Mm.
or what is that? What is that benefit that they get?
So for FiberStrap, the uniqueness also is in the cord. You see, the cord it's a cylindrical shape. It's not flat as the plastic cable ties, and this means that the cord has a lot of flexibility. So if we just think about attaching it to a packaging solution, with this flexibility, you can use this type of operations. So you can sew with it. You can replace, for example, 2 plastic cable ties with 1 fiber strap. If you're cutting a plastic cable tie, it gets very, very sharp. And we have heard stories about electricians working with attaching plastic cable ties and cutting them, and they can have a lot of blood on their arms after a day of attachment of plastic cable ties. This cord is soft. If you cut it, it's paper. You will not be scratched, and this means that you will not scratch the product either when you're attaching a product to it, because you have no sharp edge.
Those are definitely good arguments. One of the like places where I've used a lot of, or I've been made to use a lot of plastic cable ties is when they are kind of trying to lock your baggage in an airline, right? They'll put the baggage. The
Yeah.
benefit that I also see there with the polyamide one is that when you twist it, it breaks. You don't need a scissor to cut it. So is that
Mm.
something, the unpacking experience? Have you been able to tackle that too?
We know some customers say is that it's sometimes impossible to open the polyamide because they are so you can't open it with a scissor. Sometimes you need a plier. For fiber strap you just need a scissor. I don't have one here, but otherwise I could show you. It's just to cut it.
Yeah, but can you do it without a
It's
scissor?
very Without a scissor, no.
Yeah,
You need something
be able
sharp
to
to
cut it.
cut
Okay,
it.
got it. So, in terms of application, Sigrid, do you see that this is my biggest focus right now? And it could be, you mentioned many as we were going along, but again, and do you see that okay, this is where we want to sell the most, and then we are going to move into these applications, and these customers may be more pliable, or something like that. Where would you say is your sweet spot in terms of applications?
I think we actually don't know yet what will be the sweet spot. We started with packaging just because we are familiar with this area, but it can be something unknown as well. And we are always super eager to learn more about other segments and where we can find a value to the customers for using FiberStrap. But we know also that marine industry are using a lot of plastic cable ties, and we know that they are used in many areas that we are not familiar with yet. So this will be super interesting to explore moving on forward.
Just from my kind of limited experience, but years of seeing things in this domain, the way I see it is that it's fundamentally a twist trap, right, for your cable itself. And again, there is so many beautiful usages, and I saw companies literally produce. Of course, there are ropes and things like that for paper bags, which I'm sure
Mm.
you're familiar with.
Mm.
But I literally saw beautiful carpets, rugs being made of twist wrap paper, and yeah, we can talk later, and I'll give you those ideas and connect
Yeah.
you with some of the people who are doing it, which is obviously beyond the locking mechanism. And but like you said, it may
Mm.
be applications beyond the packaging as well, and I think there will be,
Absolutely.
especially when you look at the fundamental properties of a product. It could be multifarious kind of applications. Just kind of stepping on to, you've obviously done a lot of work to decide, okay, this is, so you decide that, okay, I'm going to create a paper strap or a strap which is sustainable. but then you have to also come out with, okay, this is the kind of paper, this is the kind of PLA or hemp reinforcement. So talk to us about that discovery process. How did you guys decide that,
Mm.
okay, this is the sweet spot? I'm sure there were a lot of trials and errors after you decided, okay, this is what we
Yes.
want to make. But then you ultimately come out with, because a paper is not a paper as well, right? Just twisting one paper. I know
Mm.
we've tried to work in that industry, and it's so specific when you're trying to do that whole thin
Mm.
kind of paper, and twisting it and getting it right is so tough to find that right product. So what was that journey like that landed you with the current product substrate?
It's exactly as you mentioned. It has been a lot of trials and errors, even if fibers are what we all three have been working with for over 20 years. So we know fibers, you can think at least. But I mean, when it comes to these specific areas, it's such small details that are important. We have been testing. This is what we have been doing: testing, 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 and testing with customers. And I mean, customer testing, I think that is the most important thing in a development process. You need to have the customers giving you feedback. It's so valuable also, because I mean, it can be things that you don't think about. You think, oh, it works well, but then suddenly it's like it's a little bit too much friction, or it's something else, or something that you couldn't imagine that you need to consider. So even if you know like fibers, wood fibers, like we do, it's still a lot of things that needs to be discovered. And also, of course, a lot of research. We try to use the most sustainable materials we can find, but still it needs to function. That's number one, because otherwise it doesn't matter if we are developing a product if no one will use it, no one will buy it. So it needs to work. And then you also need to take difficult decisions. Should we use this, or should we try to find something else, or how long can a development process be? But everything is a compromise. You need to just take decisions and decide, this is what we will do now. We can't do it perfect in the beginning. This is the first product that we are developing that works. Let us continue with the development during, the next generation and the generation after, and continuously searching, finding better materials, better ways of improving the production, and so on. But it will be a never-ending story if you don't take the decision that this is what we do now, this is what we do perfect now, and then we can do it even better further on. So this is the mindset we have.
Yeah, and then when I look at your design, because you're challenging a product that already exists, but you're also doing it in a very different methodology, right? The locking mechanism is totally different. Even when you were showing me, I was just thinking, oh, that's a very interesting lock design, like how is it working? How are you kind of making it stay? You've created a kind of latch process
Yeah.
there. And then again, it's not just the paper, it's also the configuration of the structure on top. It has to have the right amount of rigidity to be able to sustain. So, yeah, it is complex, but I really appreciate your idea
Absolutely.
that enter the market and then keep improving and improving. It'll never be
Yes.
absolutely perfect. So I'm sure a lot of listeners would gain from that idea itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't see this. I will.
I can.
I should send you some
Yeah.
samples, but it's a little bit pressed in the tip. So this is a cylindrical cord, and then to make this
Aha.
pressing,
Okay. Now I
we're
see
not
it. You're right. I
using.
didn't see it before. It is flat on the end.
Yes, and to make this pressing, we're not using any additives. We have developed a method how to press it with heat and pressure. So it's very, very specific, but this makes it very easy to attach. And then you pull like this.
Amazing. Yeah, just the little details that go into creating something. And that takes me well, it positions me well to my next question, which is evolving the technology. Because there is one thing to know, okay, this is the product you want. The second thing, okay, these are more or less the kind of substrates that we are going to use to create that product. But what you have also done is created a new production process in a way in order to be able to come out with the product. So, how did that evolve? And are you producing everything in Sweden? Or are you looking to produce elsewhere in order to keep the cost down? How is that working for you?
So for now, we have built the machine ourselves with a partner, of course, but it's our machine. It's unique. I can't tell more about the details about the machine, but I can tell you that we are planning for more machines in the coming years. So we have the first one is in Sweden. We might in the future also place a machine where it makes sense. Maybe a big customer, close to a big customer, or in an area where we know that they have where it makes sense actually to produce FiberStrap.
And that's incredible to create a new technology all on its own to be able to utilize it. And is there within the fiber strap, is there like different applications that you see already? Like one was customers, the other is applications. Some may be like a food packaging, another may be like the straps for a concert. Do you see these as being, do they need different properties, or more or less the strap is the same and it'll apply everywhere? How do you see that?
They need different properties. So in some applications, we see that it needs to be more resistant against humidity, for example, if it's marine applications, when it's water, because even if it looks quite sturdy, it is paper and it's a natural material. The cord might swell if it's in contact with water, and if it's put in a glass of water, it will start to dissolve. So these are type of applications that can be quite interesting to work further with and see if we can find another generation of FiberStrap that can suit their needs in this segment. It can also be, thinner. Some applications is just about to keep something together. We don't need the strength. Then we can have another type of FiberStrap. And in the opposite way, sometimes more strength is needed. So these are examples of typical, more natural development areas for FiberStrap.
Yeah, it's just interesting to hear how a simple product can be so challenging in different ways in different places. And you're right. If it's a water application, it's different, and you don't want it to disintegrate for a certain time. The weight application will matter, etc., etc. So you can't have one thing solve everything. I guess you'll have to choose your battles to be able to do justice.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to take a complete pivot now and talk to us about your partnership with Red Bull and then with Walmart. What was that like, and what is it about, and how are you progressing?
So let's start with the Red Bull. They have a quite high sustainability focus. They are arranging a lot of events, and especially this one that we were participating in was an event in Portugal, where people they're building flying machines. I think they call them flying machines. So they're building them from different types of material, and then they are jumping with these flying machines from a height down to the water. It's quite crazy, but it's I think this is a typical Red Bull event. And they said that they don't want to have, when they dive into the water, if they're using plastic cable ties, it will be impossible to find all this, and they will just stay there, most probably. So they wanted to use an alternative to the cable ties for building these machines. So all these teams were equipped with fiber straps, and they could attach anything with fiber straps for building these machines. So of course they are trying to do the best to pick up everything from this. They are very, very sustainability focused and very aware of this. They are really great. But if it would happen that it wouldn't pick up something. It would be better that it is a FiberStrap than plastic, because it will dissolve and biodegrade. They also used it for their signage and banners for the event in this case.
Yep, it's amazing. Like, I'm just thinking that's another use case where you have to have a certain amount of strength. You don't want somebody's device breaking up because the tire wasn't
No,
good, right? That would be a disaster.
exactly. You need both the strength and the
And
sustainability
then what about
aspect of it.
Walmart?
We are, how do you say, connected to their circular connector. And we were chosen as the top pick supplier for Walmart's customers or vendors. So if they wanted to use a sustainable alternative to plastic cable ties, they are recommending us.
That's great. I'm sure it took some effort to convince these big companies to come with you. So good work on that. Also, you've won a
Thank
couple of
you.
great awards in 2024, to Green Products Award, European Green Award. What was that like, and how did that come about?
I think this was really great events, and how do you say, competitions, actually, you can say, because you have to apply and you're competing with so many other sustainable solutions. But joining these events, it doesn't matter. Everyone is a winner, I think, because everyone has, it's so good materials. So it's so nice to be a part of that, because you're a part of a community that are developing new sustainable materials, and it's really interesting to see these innovations. So I think it's a fantastic this community with that are gathering these people and these companies that are creating the new solutions. And we had some wins in this competition, so it was amazing.
Nice work. And so, what about funding? How's that been? Has that been an easy journey? I guess never is, but how easy or how tough, and how are you seeing that going forward? Are you going to be okay in terms of money? Are you guys going to be raising more? And how's that journey been for you?
It has been also a very interesting journey to from the beginning. If you think about it, we are not a tech company, we're a production company. For tech companies, there's a lot of investors and people know how to invest, and this is what a lot of these green tech funding companies are working with. But we are a production company, so that's something different. And we have investors they have a background in the forest industry, so they know also wood fibers, and they have knowledge about production, and they can also guide us and support us, and have the background and understanding what we are doing. So I think it's important to find the right investors, and just not someone that doesn't know understand what you're doing, because it's difficult to set up a new production. It is something else than in the tech industry, as an example.
And overall, do you have other recommendations? Because as I've been speaking to you, there are so many learnings that are coming for people who are in the sustainable packaging space. To name a few, just in terms of focus, in terms of application, in terms of understanding, challenging status quo. So I see this kind of chain of ideas. But if you look at your experience overall, and your many years of experience just working with larger organizations, and then seeing younger entrepreneurs entering the sustainable packaging space. So, apart from the funding suggestion and direction, are there other recommendations that you have to young entrepreneurs wanting to do more in the sustainable packaging space?
Yes, I think that young entrepreneurs, they have a very close connection to, I mean, they are naturally, because they are young, with the new generations and the new consumers, the people that will lead this world in some years. So they also have an understanding what is important for them. And I think, especially on the sustainability side, I think it's super interesting to see what if you look at both the trends and how sustainability will affect our lives in the future, and the actions we do now and the impact later. So I think they have a really, really good foundation for finding this good innovations that will be meaningful in the future, definitely. And on the other hand, I can say also that starting something that we have done, we are joking about it, but we are saying that it's good that we do this when we are old. We couldn't do it when we were younger because we wouldn't have the experience and knowledge, and this is something that comes with age. So for us, it has been really good to take this step and start this journey when we are in the 50s. So for us, it has been perfect. But I think definitely the new generations and young entrepreneurs, I mean, just go for it. I think it's wonderful to see all these ideas, and especially when we have been joining these competitions to see all these amazing new products that they are developing.
I'm going to reverse that question, Sigrid, for you. What are your recommendations that people shouldn't do? Do you have ideas that, when you're an entrepreneur entering a sustainable packaging space, don't do this?
I think it's very easy to think too much, to see the risks. and this is also what is I think stopping a lot of people from entering this area, because it's scary, it's new. Maybe you will live on a very low salary for a while. Maybe you will dedicate all your time to what you're doing for some years. I think you're overthinking this. Of course you will do, but it will be so also interesting and fun and rewarding. So you have to think about all this, both of these sides, but don't think about too much about how much hard work it is. Because that could stop anyone. That is what you shouldn't focus about. Just focus forward.
That's a great recommendation. Don't overthink. Just go for it.
Yeah.
If your heart wants it, go for it, and everything
Yeah.
else will fall into place, which is definitely something I see all the time. You just have to stay with it, and then it tends to turn at the right time, and things start coming together. Okay, all great conversations have to go towards closures, as you are manufacturing closures. But so my final two questions. So, if you're gazing in a crystal ball and you're looking 5 years down, how do you see your company evolving, and what would be your vision for EVLR? That okay, this is the way, this is what I would like to dream about in 5 years. This is the scale, or this is the solution, and this is what we have achieved. What does that look like to you?
Oh, wow. I think I would actually love to see that we can, it's very basic, that we can replace plastic where it's not necessary. Just to replace it where it makes sense, when you don't need this over-specified material that it sometimes is. You have to design, you have to use a material that is designed for its life length, for its function, and for its usage. And I think when we can reach this goal to replace all this, I think it's such a big win for everyone. I really see this moving forward. That will be something that I would be super happy to achieve. I think also another aspect is also to achieve that the regulations we have on single-use plastics. Also, maybe we can open the eyes also for the people working with these regulations, that there is possible to replace materials. You just have to think new. You have to invent new materials, of course, but everything that is unnecessary, that we don't need, we can replace it with better materials.
Superb. And my final question: what does good garbage mean to you?
Good garbage. I think for me, I love the name first of all. Good garbage, it means the first I think about is regenerative material. Good garbage, because garbage can be super good if it's used for regenerative purposes. It's something that the nature can take care of itself. So it's not really garbage in that sense, but it I mean, because you can use it. It can be something that can be made for something else to grow in, or enriching the soil, for example, or helping bacteria and microorganisms. This is what first of all come to mind when I think about good garbage.
It's interesting that we start with biodynamics and we end with biodynamics, in the sense, you go back to help the soil, help the agriculture, and so it was like
Yes.
we started and we've come full circle, and that's so beautiful. It kind of happened organically, right? You were not thinking of it, but it was interesting for me to join those dots. Sigrid, it's been so wonderful speaking to you, and I was just thinking earlier that there is a common thread in the Swedes. They focus a lot. I don't know where that comes from, but it's beautiful to see that every person I've talked to is very, very kind of clear about this is what they want to manufacture, and they want to manufacture it really well, which is such an interesting thing for me to watch and learn from and see, because many times we kind of just dissipate energy. And it's interesting to watch that come together in so many of the people I've managed to work with and talk to, etc., etc. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your knowledge with people in the domain. And I wish you all the very best as you go forward.
Thank you so much, Ved. It has been lovely to join this podcast.